spoken about. Now, Brian, you've been following what Marco Rubio has been up to recently.
I have, and I know there's controversy around him, and he's not everybody's cup of tea, but I was listening to him speaking to the American Compass organization. If you've never heard of that, I hadn't either, but it's an organization promoting family, community, and industry to help underpin the nation. We're talking about the USA, of course, the nation's liberty and prosperity. So this was their 5th annual event. Let's have a listen to what Rubio had to say.
And then in 1989 and 1990, 91, it was my first years in college, and literally the entire world just transformed before my very eyes. Understand, you grow up your whole life and like the whole world is about the Soviet Union, and all of a sudden the Soviet Union no longer exists. My favorite memory of that is that I was actually taking a course that fall by a Soviet expert at, I think it was in Gainesville, Florida. And this poor guy's entire career came coming down over a 3-month period as the Soviet Union collapsed. It's like all these years of work, you have a PhD in Soviet studies, and now the Soviet doesn't exist anymore. So I don't know what he did after that. I need to check up on that guy, but anyways, the point is the whole world transformed. And there was this effusive exuberance, the belief that the Cold War is over, we won, and now the entire world is going to become just like us. Free enterprise democracies. This is a very idealistic thing to believe. But here's the other conclusion they made, and that is that nationhood no longer mattered when it came to economics. That right now the world would no longer have borders. It wouldn't matter where things were made. What mattered is they were made in the most efficient place. And it became mantra. And look, I think it became part of Republican orthodoxy for a very long time, an orthodoxy that I came up in, which was, it's okay if productive capacity moves to another country, because what that will do is it will free up our workers to do work that's even more productive and pays them more. It was the famous or the infamous idea that who cares that you lost your job at a factory, you're going to learn how to code, and then you're going to make a lot more money doing that. Well, it was completely unrealistic, number one, and became incredibly disruptive that decision was made. But here's the other implication of it. It robbed the nation of its industrial capacity, of its ability to make things. And its industrial capacity and its ability to make things has 2 ramifications. The first is it hurts your economy. It hurts your country. It robs people of jobs, and the transition is not nearly as easy, but it also ends up becoming corrosive and destructive to communities. And as a result, we had a Rust Belt. We had places that were gutted.
So what I found so interesting about that talk is a lot of what he says is, of course, factually correct. These things did happen. There was a focus on the global economy, and for US and other nation states, productivity absolutely declined to the extent that widespread poverty existed. Came into being in America. It's happened in UK as well. He talks about a plan for a world with no borders. This sounds very familiar. I'm sure Sandy's will have something to say about that in a minute. And robbed of our industrial capacity. So all these things he's describing, factually correct. This has certainly happened in the US and it's happened in the West. But then he's used that wonderful little phrase, they. What he doesn't talk about is the people that actually created the globalist policy that America followed or engaged with, which caused all the problems in the first place. So he's not talking about the United Nations even. He's not talking about the World Economic Forum. He's not talking about the Trilateral Commission. He's not mentioning any of the organizations which not only created the policies he now says destroyed America, they are still destroying America. So let's have a listen to a little bit more of this.
And all of a sudden that company or that field vanished because it moved somewhere else where it was cheaper to do, and those jobs were gone, and obviously became incredibly destructive, not just for the United States, by the way, but for many nations in the industrialized West. But the other thing it robbed us of is the ability to make things, which is a national security impairment, and a very significant one. And that's never changed. That's always been true. And so today, what you find is because of all of those years of neglect, because of the loss of industrial capacity, we didn't just undermine our society, we didn't just undermine our domestic economy, we've undermined our position in the world. And what you will find, and what we find even now, is that increasingly, on geopolitical issue after geopolitical issue, it is access to raw material and industrial capacity that is at the core both of the decisions that we're making and the areas that we're prioritizing. Part of the decisions that were made were, in the end, if something is good for the global economy, that's really what matters. Ultimately, a lot of public policy decisions were made without the nation state in mind. Rather, the decision was, is this good for the global economy? The other, which is more broad, but I think also ties to economic policy, is the following. Part of the decisions that were made were, in the end, if something is good for the global economy, that's really what matters. Ultimately, a lot of public policy decisions were made without the nation state in mind. Rather, the decision was, is this good for the global economy?
So again, some very, very interesting comments there. He's saying that the nation state was basically overlooked for the global economy. And this has taken America into a dangerous place. Notice he said that making things equals national security. And here we are in UK, where supposedly the government's brought in a defence review. And what is it actually, what's actually happening? Well, our ability to make steel just about gone, our ability to produce munitions gone. We need the Germans to help us produce barrels for weapons on the battlefield. So our manufacturing absolutely destroyed by successive governments, and that equals a direct attack on national security. So where does Rubio sit? Do I trust him? No, I don't. If he starts to talk about the people that have brought in these agendas, such as the World Economic Forum, then we know he's on the right path. If he doesn't, this is another complete distraction for the American public in this case. Sandy, I don't know whether you've got a very quick comment on that.
Absolutely. I mean, everything that we had has gone. Everything's been lost, and you know, as a nation state, the UK has been hollowed out from inside for a number of years, and we know really who's behind that. So I totally get what you're saying. He's not to be trusted because he's not calling out the actors involved. He's just kind of brushing over it. So yeah, you're absolutely right. We everything is gone really that we held dear. Yeah. I think I've